Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat is a day that is set aside for rejoicing. When someone sits Shiva, we actually don't sit Shiva on Shabbat. It's the one day that the family is expected to come into services and to worship with the community. However, certain days are so important on the calendar, the community calendar of our hearts, that even on Shabbat, I believe that we are compelled to bring it up. And on this Shabbat, we mark a terrible anniversary, the 20th anniversary of the bombing of the World Trade Towers, the bombing of the Pentagon, the crash of a plane, and really the destruction for a lot of us, of a sense of ease and calm, and the beginning of a time of fearfulness. There are some things, some pains that are so great that we don't have words to describe or to express that pain. And that's part of where a nigun, the tradition of a nigun, of a song without words, comes from. Sometimes being at a loss for words is because of joy, and sometimes it is because of a heartbreak. Sometimes we should just feel rather than to think. So we begin the service tonight allowing ourselves to grieve and to mourn both the lives that were lost on that fateful day and our belief that perhaps the world could work harder to be at peace. For many of us, that prayer is still strong and still alive, but before we can move forward, we need to take a moment to look back. So please join us as we welcome in Shabbat.
Shabbos, Shabbos, Shabbos soll sein jeden Shabbos. Shabbos soll sein, Shabbos soll sein, Shabbos auf die ganze Welt. Shabbos soll sein, Shabbos soll sein, Shabbos auf die ganze Welt. Lai 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 lai
One of the things that has given me hope is in the last 20 years, one of the things we've seen in the United States is the experience of both the Muslim and the Jewish community growing closer together rather than farther away, of us understanding the importance of us reaching out one to another, and the way that we bring peace is not by hurting or hating or being fearful, but by building bridges and by building relationships, and slowly this person and that person coming together and simply being able to see each other as a human being. This, I think, is the essence of what Judaism teaches us. It teaches us, even in difficult times, to look for the spark of the holiness in the person who sits opposite from us. That even in difficult times, we continue to pray for peace, and that prayer is never enough. Prayer should simply nourish our souls so that we are willing and able to go out and do the work that is necessary. So as we welcome in this Shabbat, let's take time throughout the weekend to mourn our losses, but also to ask ourselves, what are we doing to create a world that is more peaceful and more whole than it once was? And one of the ways we do that is by welcoming each other with Lecha Dodi. We are welcoming into our midst the Sabbath Queen, the Sabbath Bride, and we are recognizing that even in the most difficult of times, there are things to celebrate, things to rejoice, and Shabbat itself is one of those gifts and one of those blessings. So if you're joining us from home, take time to write in the chat, greet each other, let people know who's there so they could wish you a Shabbat Shalom. And if you're sitting next to people that you don't know, well, actually you shouldn't be sitting next to anybody that you don't know. So sad. That is just so sad to me. But feel free to wave to each other because all of the people who are in the room with us have their masks on. And maybe after services, make sure you let people know who you are, because with masks sometimes it could be difficult. Now, some people may have noticed that to my right, I do not have Cantor Steinberg. We are very lucky to have Rabbi Galit Cohen Kedem from Israel to be our guest scholar, our guest rabbi educator for the year. And I am so delighted that on this Shabbat of all Shabbats, you're with us to be able to hear the stories that our post-confirmation students have to bring back from Israel to hear. So I am sure you will be fascinated to find out what their perception and their view of your home country is. And while we have Michael and Michael's lovely voice joining us tonight, poor Cantor, her allergies are acting up, and so she is at home tonight because we are hoping that by Yom Kippur that she will be just fine and feeling better. So I understand that the Sabbath Queen is waiting very impatiently, tapping her toes outside the door, and is asking to be let in. So we continue on page 138 with Lecha Dodi. Please join us.
Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. La Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zechor v'dibur echad, Ishmi'anu el gam yochad, Adonai echad, u'shemo echad, L'shem el tiferet v'liti la Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'necha, ki hemikor habracha, merosh mikedem nesucha, sof ma'aseh b'machshava techi la Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Hit'oreri, ki va'orech kumi uri, shir daberi, kavod Adonai ayalik nigla la Lecha Dodi, likrat pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Boi v'shalom, ateret ba'ala, gam b'simcha uv'tzohola. Toch emunei am segula, boi chala בואי la 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 לך דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה.
It is my absolute pleasure to be able to invite up our you are post-B'nai Mitzvah, but our post-confirmation students to join us on the bima to do us the honor of lighting the Shabbat candles. Each of you brings so much light and so much joy to our community. And so please come and join us on the bima. The blessing for the candles can be found on page 120, but we continue first with Shalom Aleichem on page 142.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hashari, Malachei Elyon, Bimele, Malachei Hamlachi, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Bimele, Malachei Hamlachi, Kadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Atah Adonai, Eloheinu Melech HaOlam, Asher Kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled the light, so may we, in our own ways, be among those who kindle light. Amen.
Boachem L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Bimele, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Bimele, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
It was a Shabbat afternoon in Tel Aviv where I just a few days prior to that I received an email from our executive director here, from Leslie, saying that the Greek...
I'm not Leslie.
No, the executive director here, Leslie.
I thought you were saying I was Leslie.
Leslie is here. Leslie is everywhere.
Cool.
Leslie is this. So she said, we know you're so busy with getting ready for the relocation, but maybe you just have some time to just hop over and meet this group of kids. And she calls you kids. I just want you to know that. And so when I showed up in Tel Aviv in that humid, hot afternoon, just like every afternoon in the summer in Tel Aviv, I recognized all of you because 2 years beforehand, when I visited here at CBI, Rabbi invited me to come join you to have a conversation. And I could see how much you've changed. It's kind of interesting to see people with the interval of 2 years. And it seemed like you had a new spark to your eyes when you spoke about your Jewish identity and you spoke about Israel and you spoke about your experiences. And even when I asked you, we're moving to Sacramento soon, what would you recommend? You kept on talking about the things that you experienced back there. So I'm afraid you got the bug. I want to bless you that visiting Israel will be a little bit like potato chips. You can't just have one. And I want you to always remember that no matter who's the politician leading the boat, the people, the land, the stories, the language, the tradition, the atmosphere are yours. And you can always come and join in and see this as another place that you can feel safe and welcome and loved and meaningful and connected. So, Leshana Ba'a b'Yerushalayim, many, many more years and many more future experiences together in Israel, in Israel. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Amen.
Shalom.
We continue now with the Baruch on page 146. Please rise.
Baruch et Adonai HaMorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Traditionally, many of our prayers, like the Mariv and Aravim and the Avat Olam, were not written out. Before there was the printing press, what would happen is that the Chazan, the service leader, would have the opening line and the closing line, and then they would improvise with everything that was in the middle. They would take the theme of the prayer, and then depending on where they were on that day or that week, they would pour their heart into that prayer. And so we're going to do a little variation of that tonight. Instead of reading the Mariv, Aravim, and the Ahavat Olam that are in the Siddur, in the prayer book, we've asked two of our students to give kind of their interpretation. The Mariv, Aravim speaks of big issues, of the universe, of the sun and the moon and creation itself. And Ahavat Olam means the great or eternal love. And while it refers to God showing love to us through the gift of Torah, the truth is every single day we could see God's love through different gifts, whether it is community or friendship or breathing the air that doesn't have smoke filled in it. There are many, many ways to experience God's love. So it's my pleasure to invite up Henry Goldberg to speak on the larger theme of Mariv Aravim and Natalie Michaels to speak about Ahavat Olam, but bringing and weaving into their stories their experiences with their classmates in Israel this summer. So Henry, you go first, and when you're speaking, you take off your mask. Sorry.
Dividing ourselves may be one of humanity's... There we go. Hello. Dividing ourselves may be one of humanity's greatest talents. No matter the topic, we still somehow find a way to take sides, be that basic human rights, citizenship, land rights, or even crunchy versus creamy peanut butter. If you choose creamy, you're blasphemous. Sorry. During our time, and even our transition off of the plane into Israel, a difference, maybe even a sort of divide, was felt. I remember coming off of the 13-and-a-half-hour flight, asleep and possibly delirious, having been forced to listen to a particularly vocal infant. Nonetheless, I couldn't get past the overwhelming sense of home that I felt stepping off the plane. As an American Jew, we see Hebrew in prayer books, the Torah, almost all in close vicinity of a synagogue. But on a bag of chips, never. It was comforting, merely seeing and hearing Hebrew around me. I not only felt, but actually did have an underlying connection with nearly everyone I saw. Judaism. It wasn't a secret I had to keep hidden, waiting for someone to check the right boxes before I revealed that side of myself. When I met with the other Bus 17 group, every interaction felt more genuine. We were both Jewish, knew it, and it wasn't an unexpected hurdle one of us might or might not trip over. Although both groups were admittedly cliquish at first, we put any apprehension behind us and continued on with our trip. But both culture shock and making new friends weren't the most glaring examples of a divide staring us in the face. It was the Israel-Palestine conflict. On our trip, we were not only lucky enough to discuss the timeline of events, including possible solutions, but also to even talk with an Israeli settler and Palestinian. We heard firsthand the struggles, complaints, and hopes from both sides, thus formulating our own nuanced opinions free from any sort of media bias. When we were able to discuss once more as a group, we still found it difficult to agree on even the basis of a possible solution. However, we did agree on one: education. Education for the kids and teenagers after us. Education together, integrated among one another to end this conflict, maybe not today or tomorrow, but in the lifetime of those kids, as it is ultimately their choice to reinforce or break down such barriers. This trip was filled with once-in-a-lifetime experiences I regret not being able to tell you about. But if I were to sum up the trip in one phrase, it would be bridging the divide before us and continuing forward. Thank you.
Hello. When Rabbi Alfie asked me what I would like to speak about tonight, I said I could either talk about the Shema or give an ode to old men in Speedos. She said that an introduction to the Shema would be preferable, but I've decided that I can do both. For clarification, she has not reviewed this address. I will begin with the Shema. A very strange thing happened in Israel. I felt myself detaching from my Jewishness. It was the first time I had existed in holy spaces surrounded by a majority of Orthodox people, and I began to feel uncertain of my Jewish identity. When we visited the Kotel, the Western Wall, I was surrounded by women praying silently and persistently, pushing themselves into the stone, their forearms crossed over their foreheads, almost pained by the sheer weight of their religion. Standing among them, I thought, well darn, I ought to do something Jewish. After a moment of scrambling, I decided to say the Shema. It began without issue. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. But then I forgot. For 3 minutes, I stood next to the wall, desperately trying to remember the rest of the prayer. It was only after I surrendered my spot against the wall to an old woman with a menacing glare that I remembered the second verse. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. I realized that I am so used to saying the Shema at temple, among my friends and family, that I was unable to remember the prayer on my own. Israel affirmed for me that the nature of my Jewish identity is a communal thing. It is strongest when I am among the people who define Judaism for me. Rather than the words of prayers or their meanings, I remember the experiences. Now for the old men in Speedos. Old men in Speedos people Israeli beaches. They move in small packs of other Speedoed old men, and they rule their territory with confidence and grace. Old men in Speedos swim the farthest into the ocean, strut with the most confidence, and seem to have the most fun. I wanted to know what makes Speedoed old men so free, so I asked one. He said to me, "Look at where we are. We may not be lounging on a sandy beach next to the Mediterranean, but we are among people who care for us, who would continue to care for us, even if we decided to prance around in Speedos." The Shema is a prayer about affirmation, confirming the meaning of our Judaism. I loved Israel, but I'm happy to be home, back among our community. Whatever Judaism may mean to you, I ask you to tap into the Speedoed old man within you, to look at where we are. Thank you.
Henry and Natalie, those were both beautiful, but Natalie, it took me about a year to get Glenn to stop wearing Speedos when we met. Oh, I don't think I've ever said that publicly like that before. And now I am so afraid that if he is watching tonight, that he may feel emboldened and empowered by your talk. So thank you for that. Yasher Koach. So let us do as Natalie urged us to do. Let's find that inner old man.
Free.
I'm just imagining all the body hair that goes with that, because there's always body hair with an old man in Speedos.
Mine is on the outside.
Yours is on the outside. Oy. But let's find that freedom. Let's find that sense of comfort, of joy, of being cared about. As we take a deep breath, open our hearts, and together, let's sing the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed.
We continue together with the Ve'ahavta on page 154.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha uvechol nafshecha uvechol meodecha vehayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavcha hayom al levavecha ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך. וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אמן.
The opposite of kedusha, of sacredness in Hebrew, is chol. Chol, profane or mundane, also means sand. So in many ways, Natalie, what you did is in the midst of the sand, you were looking for the kedusha. You were looking for the sacred, because you were asking a big question. You were asking why. And I think one of the biggest enemies that kedusha has, that sacredness has, is habits. When we stop asking why, then it just gets really dry and stale and uninteresting. Leah Goldberg, one of my favorite Hebrew poets, wrote on page 145 what I think is one of the best of Jewish prayers that were written in the past 200 years. I'll read it in Hebrew first. Lamdeni Elohai, barech vehitpalel, על סוד הלקמל, על נוגה פרי בשל, על החירות הזאת לראות, לחוש, לנשום, לדעת, לייחל, להיכשל. למד את שפתותיי ברכה ושיר הלל, בהתחדש זמנך עם בוקר ועם ליל, לבל יהיה יומי היום כתמול שלשום, לבל יהיה עליי יומי הרגל. Teach me, O God, a blessing, a prayer, on the mystery of the withered leaf, unripened fruit so fair, on the freedom to see, to sense, to breathe, to know, to hope, to despair. Teach my lips a blessing, a hymn of praise, as each morning and night you renew your days. Lest my day be today as the one before, lest routine set my ways.
We continue on page 158.
מי כמוך בהלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות, אוסף אל, נורא תהילות, אוסף אל, מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע ים לפני משה. זה אלינו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. Die 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 ya die 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 ya die 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 ya die 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 ya die die. Sorry.
You okay?
Okay.
So while most of our post-B'nai Mitzvah students, our current 11th and 12th graders, went to Israel last summer, some had a decidedly different experience. Still one that was immersive in a Jewish community, still one that was rich with learning opportunities, but not in a different time zone. And so it's my pleasure to invite up Ethan and Sam and Ari to please come and join us on the Bima and to lead us in the Hashkivenu on page 160.
You guys ready?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Lishalom, Lishalom, V'ha'amidenu Shomreinu V'ha'im. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Amen. Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai, guard us from all harmful things. Oh, Adonai, keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us daily wrong from right. Oh, Adonai, Amen. Amen, amen. Amen, amen. just your voices. Amen. Amen, amen. Amen, amen. Amen. Amen.
Yashukoa.
Yashukoa.
Boom, boom.
That was so much fun. And for those who don't know, Sam was actually one of our song leaders for Busy this last year as well, and for Kesher, who helped make the COVID experience more bearable and more fun for a lot of our teens. And so now we continue, I thought we were continuing with something else, but we're continuing with this. So Ethan, you always do things with your own flair, and Ethan had his own particular immersive Jewish experience this summer, did you not?
I did.
You did. So, Ethan, where did you go this summer?
I went to Chicago.
But you have to say, like, what part of Chicago?
Okay, I went to Skokie, Illinois.
Skokie, Illinois. That is truly a immersive Jewish experience.
Indeed it is.
So I would say in that, probably that part of Chicago, there are probably more Jews than in entire Sacramento County, Yolo County, and from here to Tahoe.
I think you're right.
I think I'm right on that too. So I asked Ethan to talk tonight and to talk at this point in the service about the idea of standing on our shoulders. In a moment, we'll rise for the tefillah, and the first prayer in the tefillah is called the Avotave, where we recall our ancestors. But we don't just recall them, we recall the merit of our ancestors. And Ethan has been incredibly blessed to know not only his grandparents, but his great-grandparents. And so I asked him to speak tonight because too often I think we look at the prayers in the prayer book, and we only think of our Avot B'Imahot, our ancestors, as being the ones who are in the Bible. But in truth, our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, these are also our Avot B'Imahot. These are also our ancestors from whom we have a lot to learn. So Ethan, if you could share with us some of what you learned this summer.
Take this one. Hello. How you doing? Well, this summer, instead of going to camp or going to Israel, I decided to go to Chicago and see some family. And I have some of my mother's side of the family living in Chicago, as well as my father's side. My father actually grew up there. So I got to go stay with my grandfather, and I actually got to see my great-grandmother, who is 94, I think, which I think is pretty cool, because, you know, I'm 16. That's a lot more than, yeah. And while I was there, there was a lot of loud meals. There were a lot of Yiddish phrases thrown at me, and I have absolutely no clue what any of them meant. But what I felt a sense of community and family, and I felt very connected to the Jewish side of, I don't know, just my life, my family, and I felt that I got to experience the Judaism of my life in a whole new light. So, yeah, that's that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ethan.
Thank you.
Now, had you been in the year before you, in Natalie's class, you could have given Natalie a call and said, Natalie, can you teach me some of those handy Yiddish phrases that you learned your year? Or you could looked up in the Padlet, because I have all those Yiddish phrases, but I think many of them may have not been appropriate to use in your grandparents' home.
I think you're right. And then also, I didn't...
Did I hear a ooh? I heard an ooh. No, there are things like, may you, like, what was it, like, may you be like an onion and grow with your head in the ground. That's all I'm saying. You guys have very bad minds if you thought I was saying something
I
else.
also didn't want to see my grandfather in a Speedo.
Wait, say that.
I also didn't want to see my grandfather in a Speedo, so I tried to avoid that at all costs.
No one does, Ethan. No one does. But thank you, sweetie. So, I'm seeing a theme tonight. A very scary, scary theme. I'd like to invite everybody to now please rise as we continue with the Amidah. And I want to also point out a few things in the Amidah that are a little bit different than what we're used to. So if you turn to page 166, you'll notice all year long there's a little bit of the Hebrew that is written in smaller print, and it says Shabbat Shuvah. Well, this is the time you have been waiting for. This is Shabbat Shuvah. That is the Shabbat between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And there's different ways to understand what Shabbat Shuvah means, but one of the ways we look at it is the Shabbat of Return, that we are in a period of returning to a state of wholeness, a state of where we should be, our own starting point, a beginning point. But in order to do that, in order to start in a clean slate, we need to first clean the slate, not only with ourselves, but with others. And these words are a reminder to us that we should not only be asking for forgiveness from God, but before we could stand before God, we must also stand before our friends and our families and all those whom we may have caused any harm or hurt to, either intentionally or unintentionally. And so, Michael, I'm going to go out on a limb and say you're not going to chant that part, and so perhaps, is that the right
Correct.
limb? And so instead what we'll do, actually, do you know the melody for that? Excellent. So it's nice to have a ringer. You don't want me trying to sing that, because me doing chazanut is a pain. I would have to apologize to all of you before Kol Nidre. And so just follow along with us, and please join us beginning on page 164.
Adonai Sephatai Tiftach Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha. Adonai, open my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu ve'Imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, Vezocher Chastei Avot v'Imohot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava.
זוכרנו לחיים, מלך חפץ בחיים, וכותבנו בספר החיים, למענך אלוהים חיים. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה.
אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל, אתה רב להושיע. מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה.
מי כמוך אב הרחמים, זוכר יצוריו לחיים ברחמים, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך
קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהלוך סלע. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
We continue praying privately from page 172 through 180, either standing or sitting, as is your custom.
say shalom bimroma. Say shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'imeru imru amen. Yaseh shalom. Yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Oh, say shalom bimromav. Yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imeru imru amen.
On this Shabbat of 9/11, we should be particularly mindful that when we pray for healing, we pray not only for healing of body, but also healing of spirit. And so often it is easier to heal the body than it is to heal the spirit. That oftentimes our external wounds have scabbed over long before our hearts have. And so we hold in our hearts all those who seek a refuah shlema, a complete healing of body and of spirit. Please join us on page 371.
Berach Avotave Mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Yishebera imotenu mikor abracha le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
We have two more of our students to hear from tonight. One, Sam McCarchick, who spent, what summer was this for you at camp? 6. Only your 6? I feel like you were born there and never quite left. So Sam McCarchick spent the summer at Camp Newman. As he said, it's his 6th summer at camp. He lives and breathes camp. And so we asked him to come in to share some of his experience this summer as an Avotave, working as a camper at camp. I think that's the best way we could say what an Avotave is. And we've also asked Dakota Hershenson to also share some of their memories and experiences this summer at camp. But Dakota, please warn me, are there Speedos in your story? No, do not add them. I had a really horrible vision during the silent prayer that a great fear that the next time I go down to the beach and visit my brothers, they will be standing there in Speedos just to torture me. Thank you, I do appreciate that, because they listen to the service, so I don't want them to get any ideas. Okay, so come on up. So I'd like to invite both of you to come up onto the bima. So that will be, so he'll go first, you'll go second.
I'm going first.
You'll go first.
Oh, okay. Fancy schmancy. Good evening. Shabbat Shalom. You've probably heard that camp is life and the rest is just details. Well, that second part isn't entirely true. Camp is most definitely a big part of my life, and what I did this summer really solidified it as home. I spent my summer as a member of the Avotave program at URJ Camp Newman back at its Porter Creek site. Avotave is one of the main leadership programs at camp that stay for the full 8 weeks along with CIT. It means work/service and worship in Hebrew, and those were very important guides for this summer. Throughout Avo, we had work blocks pretty much every day. Jobs such as working in the mailroom and the mirpah, the infirmary, working with Camp Teton, the little campers, and serving crew. But the two most important work blocks, I'd say, were probably special ops and fundraising. In special ops, we built a lot of things. We built and painted benches and Adirondack chairs for the entirety of camp and cleared some trails as well. But I'd say the most important and the biggest project we did was creating a tefillah site on a mountain called Har Nof, which means mountain view. And this site will hopefully be there for campers to come, to use the space for prayer or programs, and also to add art to beautify this already stunning place. Hopefully, my eventual campers, when I'm a counselor, will also use this site and make it a true adorable moment. The fundraising work block was where we set up our Avotave Teen Foundation and figured out ways to raise money for organizations doing good in the world, but that could use a little help. We did phone banking, as well as set up our own Avodoction, where Newman staff members were able to bid on items which would then go towards our foundation. In the end, as a total Avodah class, along with many other help from outside, we raised over $26,000, in which we divided up between Keshet, an organization for LGBTQ plus Jews, Glide, an organization in San Francisco helping people experiencing poverty have a better life, Bechol Hashon, a camp for Jews of color in the Bay Area, and Camp Newman's own Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Scholarship Fund. This was just a sliver of what happened at camp this summer. There were lots of Frisbee games, new friends, plenty of bits, water slide records, and most importantly, building character. But I'm not the only one who attended camp this summer. Ari Dean did Hagirah, and Karen Schwartz did CIT. Here's a little bit of what they had to say about their experiences at camp. Ari recalls, camp was really fun. It was also really cool to be back at Porter Creek. Hagirah was really cool. We did lots of stuff. We had a lobby day where we lobbied a congressperson about a bill. We also did lots of art stuff. I personally did the drama Yetzirah and performed a play called 13 Ways to Mess Up a College Interview. Overall, camp was really cool. Ari, I gotta say, that play, that was pretty fun stuff. You did amazing. And Kieran also had an amazing time being a CIT through working with campers, song leading, learning how to be a good counselor, and so much more. The most important thing about this summer, these memories will last forever. Because not only were we at camp, but we were home. Thank you, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, I'd like to say. Oh, yeah, good idea. It's pretty smart. Shabbat Shalom, I already said that. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about the people that we saw in Israel. Is this better? Kidding. So I'm going to be talking about the people that we saw. Don't worry, there's no Speedos involved. Just want to point that out. Just put that in advance. We saw a plethora of people of all shapes, colors, sizes, just everything. It was a very interesting experience to see a country that, everyone is Jewish, but everyone there is so different, but they're all connected by one thing. We saw not only Jews, but we also saw Muslims, Druze, Christians, Baha'i, and I hope I already said Muslims. So we saw 5 religions all coexisting in one state, and that was, obviously it's not perfect, just want to point that out, but seeing that at the Baha'i Gardens and seeing the overview of a Jewish city and another religious sector, it was amazing to see. Obviously, we had interesting experiences with singular people. This is just some weird stuff we saw. There was a Romanian guy that we saw at a market in Jerusalem. I had a flag that I made for our group, and he asked what flag it was. And my friend Ethan, he said, "Oh, it's the flag of Turkey." It was not the flag of Turkey. So the guy goes on a rant about how much he hates Turkey and how much he loves Putin for around 10 minutes. It was the weirdest experience I had there. And it was, I'm just looking at this dude. He's shorter than me too. I'm looking down at him yeah, you're funny dude, man. It was so weird. And Ethan's he's laughing. It was horrible, He's talking about all these terrible things, but I'm geez, that's a little interesting. But at the same time, we also had amazing connections with Israelis and that we met, that were on our trip with us. We met 2 awesome, they graduated high school, right? Yeah, they graduated. They're 18s, and they're actually going to be coming to America to spend time in Indianapolis. I wish they would come here. We also had amazing counselors. We had an amazing bus driver. That's a story of itself. We also got to see and meet the settler and the Palestinian. That was very interesting. And we also got to meet an Orthodox Jew. He had a Boston accent. He had some interesting things to say, I'll tell you that. I'm not going to get into that, but I just want to point out that the diversity of seeing Ethiopians, it was just every site that we went to, there was a new group of people that we got to see, and it was very interesting. Shabbat Shalom.
And wait, don't go away, because I believe you brought something very special back with you.
I did.
Now, is that only yours, or did other kids also bring any as well?
It's like a group thing.
It's a group thing. So one of the things that we do before the kids leave for Israel in June is we give them sandwich-size Ziplocs to bring a sandwich-size.
It leaked in the plane.
This is a little bit more than a sandwich-size amount of sand that we asked them to come back with. Out of curiosity, did anyone have any problems with customs?
Not for me, no.
Not for you, good, because I always wonder if customs is going to really wonder why in the world you are bringing back the land of Israel with you.
Carrying it.
You weren't carrying it, you packed it?
No, I carried it with me. The guy looked at me like, okay, dude.
So you couldn't hear him, but he definitely got some strange looks that he was carrying this through customs.
Market too. Why are you carrying around an American international market thing with you?
Well, at least there wasn't any customs on it, so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So we asked the kids to bring back sand, and Rabbi Galit, I was thinking as you were speaking about the Kodesh and the Hol, the sacred and the profane, something you know something a lot about, because the name of Rabbi Galit's congregation is Congregation Kodesh V'Hol, a play on the fact that they're in Cholon, which is a city built on sand. And I love that our Torahs are elevated, that they hover above the earth, that they're something that we strive to embrace, that it's always a goal that is reaching higher and higher. But beneath our sacred scrolls, we have hole, we have sand, because this is the world that we live in. The Torah is meant to live in this world, which is not always a holy world. It is too often a broken and fractured world. But we were given this gift so we can make this ordinary world that we live in more sacred. So I'd like to invite all the kids who went to Israel to come and to help you, Dakota, to put this.
You don't want to open this bag.
No, I don't. I'm a little afraid that there's going to be a trail to the ark. So if all of our students from Israel, and just as you brought Israel closer to us, I hope that when you were there, that with all the Israelis you met, you were able to bring the joy of Judaism that you've all been raised with to Israel. And it was ironic to me, I don't know if you kind of heard the undercurrent, but I got the sense that for each of you it was easier to grapple with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict than the Jewish conflict between the Orthodox and the rest of Israeli Jewry. So I hope that when you met Israelis, they got a chance to see what Rabbi Galit's congregation already knows, which is there are many beautiful ways to be Jewish, and I hope you brought that joy and that light to Israel. So I'm going to invite all of you guys to put the land of Israel underneath our ark. And so for those of you who are in the room, you are welcome to go and look afterwards. It's kind of fun if you look at the bottom, if you look at the sand that's beneath our ark, you'll often see different colors because until the sand gets mixed up, because inevitably a 4 or 5-year-old goes in and plays with it, you'll see the different colors from throughout the land of Israel coming and replenishing our ark. What was that? I'm sure you did bring the camp dirt home with you, Sam. It's probably in the base of the shower because it usually takes several showers to get all that camp crud off. So just out of curiosity, tell me you didn't leave any cigarette butts in there, because the last group that came back from Israel, they got their sand in Tel Aviv, and we had to sift out some of the beach residue. So is all good? Yeah. So as Rabbi Galit said, I hope that is simply the first of many, many opportunities you have to be able to go back to our homeland and to visit the land of Israel. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you all. It's okay. It is now my pleasure to invite up Josh Mastronardi, who is not only the president of our congregation. Ooh, some of the sand got up here. It never actually leaves. To invite Josh Mastronardi, not only the president of our congregation, but also a father of a current confirmation student, to come and to give announcements.
So the announcement sheet I got didn't have anything about old men in Speedos. Did I get the wrong one? It was really awesome to hear about all your adventures this summer. I'm so glad you were all able to do all that. And thank you to Rabbi and Michael and Rabbi Galit for a wonderful service. Most of this is in on the webpage and in the Hadashot, so I'll just skim through the important parts. Tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. Torah study on Zoom. 10:30 a.m. there's a Kavanah Shabbat that's going to be pretty awesome. That's on Zoom and in person. On Sunday, 11 a.m., the High Holiday Memorial Service at the Home of Peace, the community service. And then next Wednesday is Kol Nidre, and Yom Kippur on Thursday. There are a whole bunch of activities, including a family service in person and a Havdalah and Break the Fast at Fairy Tale Town that you'll definitely want to check out and register for. Go to the webpage, again, check the Hadashot for details on that. You can also reserve time in the sanctuary during the high holidays to privately pray and reflect. Again, all that's on there. A couple general reminders. There's an election coming up on Tuesday. Go ahead and vote before then. The Social Action Emergency Housing Committee is looking for rental housing for refugees from Afghanistan especially. Please contact Larry Friedman or Sharon Rogoff if you have something that might work for that. And a reminder that our tradition of bringing canned goods and non-perishable items will not be at Kol Nidre this year. Instead, on Sunday, September 19th, that's not this Sunday, but next Sunday, there's a drop-off time both during religious school and after religious school. And with that, I do have a couple of board members here, so I will ask the board members and any committee leaders to stand and introduce yourself. Thank you, Bree. And any who are on the YouTube Live, go ahead, if you could want to go ahead and introduce yourself on the chat and who you are. People can say hi there. Shabbat Shalom.
And as I looked out in this room, I realized I was remiss in not making a very important acknowledgement, actually two very important acknowledgements. In the room with us are many of the parents of our confirmation students from the last 2 years. And this extraordinary trip that our students are able to go on is only possible because of two reasons. One is the incredible hard work that the parents do alongside their students, alongside their children, to give them this opportunity, fundraising all year long. Sam, I find it absolutely hysterical that part of your Jewish training over the summer was how to fundraise. It made me really wonder do you think non-Jewish camps have fundraising as part of the educational program?
I just know I want to talk to Sam sometime the next couple of days and get some tips, yeah.
Absolutely. So the parents of all these students put in so many hours and so much hard work throughout the year to enable their kids to be able to have this opportunity. But they also didn't do it alone. They did it here in the context of a congregation in our community. So many members, as well as so many relatives of these kids who bought raffle tickets or pizza or beer or wine or all the other things that you guys were selling and doing and over the course of the year to be able to support our students. And we are so lucky to be in a community where the value is to be able to send every child either to Israel or to camp and on the experience that they want, and to not make money a barrier from them to be able to have such an extraordinary Jewish experience. And so I want to thank all of the parents and the congregation for making this possible year after year. So we continue now. Oh, and I don't know where my head was. Did you mention that we have a lovely oneg awaiting us? Okay, so we also have a lovely oneg awaiting for us in the courtyard for those who are here. For those who are not with us physically but watching online, just a reminder that our members can sign up to come and join us for Shabbat services. We're maintaining safety protocols. You'll notice that we're not wearing masks, but we also, my nose is still running from. We take the COVID test before we come to make sure that we're all safe and healthy. So we take our masks off, but those sitting in the pews stay socially distanced and with their masks on. So if you're interested in joining us and you haven't yet, please check out our website and sign up to come and join us in person. And then you get to have the fabulous, delicious onegs in the courtyard that follow the service. But for now, we continue with our concluding prayers, beginning with the Aleinu on the bottom half of page 586. Please rise.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'ateit gedula l'yotzei breshit, shelo asanu k'goyei haratzot, velo samanu k'mishpechot ha'adama. שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. בשמיים ויוסד ארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומי. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, כך כתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבותה אל לבבך. כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. Our thoughts now turn to loved ones who are no longer with us. And it is with profound sadness that we record the recent passing of Phyllis Pockris, the very beloved mother of Radine Citronbaum and Susan Dodge, beloved mother-in-law to David Citronbaum and Warren Dodge, and beloved grandmother of Anne and Amanda Citronbaum, and Megan and Ellen Dodge. It is also with sadness that we recall the recent passing of Mervyn Fawn, the beloved brother of Claire Merksimer, beloved husband of Yael Fawn, and beloved father of Tammy, David, and Karen, and beloved father-in-law for Michael, Sandy, and Mark, as well as a beloved grandfather to Sarah, Natalie, Orly, Ava, and Gabby. Zichronam livracha, may their memories forever be a blessing. And on this Shabbat, we also recall loved ones of our people and loved ones to ourselves who have passed away at this time in years past. And it is with sadness that we recall the slaying of the 11 Israeli Olympic athletes. Also with sadness, we recall Kareem Ezra Alfie, Morton Belzer, Janice Birnbaum, Ben Blum, David Brannon, Dylan Carroll, Rosa Conlin, George Kahn Jr., Clara de Cataldo, Melvin Elfenbein, Freddie Estroff, Jim Fink, Elizabeth Garden, Regina Goins, Minnie Goldfaden, Sarah Goldstein, Ethel Herman, Tilly Levinson, Shayna Lieberman, Meyer Lippman, Lena Levis, Hannah Morris Gould, Neil Mueller, Aaron Nathan, Kaufman Nessman, Rose Neustadt, David Nevins, Laura Parker, Ben Press, Anita Rockman, Leonard Rude, George Rose, Jeanette Rosenblum, Edward Samaville, Rose Samaville Neustadt, Rose Shermer, Morton Schwartz, Bernard Shemansky, Esther Schuper, Dorothy Silva, Helen Sprain Ouellette, Joseph Swedlow, Benita Swidler, Sadie Tannenbaum, Jack Tochterman, as well as all those whose lives were cut short on September 11th, 2001. I'd like to invite all those who are saying Kaddish for a loved one tonight to please rise. And if you are at home and there is a loved one whose name you want to add to the Kaddish list who is not on the list, please feel free to call those names aloud, or to write those names in the chat. And I'd like to invite the congregation to please join me in these words of comfort. Hamakom yenechem etchem betok sha'ar of Leit Zion v'Yushalayim. May God comfort you among the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. We rise to provide comfort to those who grieve as we continue together on page 598. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divrach yerutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv imru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevarach le'olam omei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach yitba'ar v'yitraman v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei tekudsha b'richu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, damiran ve'alma ve'imru, amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru, amen. Osei shalom v'imramav, hu yasei shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru, amen. May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. And let us say, amen. So Michael, I know your voice will bring us some peace tonight, and peace is what we need, us and all of the world. And I'm hoping you know what page your words of peace might be on in the prayer book.
657.
Ah, wonderful. So we conclude our service with our closing song, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, on the bottom of page 657. Please join us.
Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu.
Od
Yavo Shalom Aleinu.
Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam.
Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam.
Shalom, shalom.
Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Shalom, shalom.
Od Yavo
Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam.
So that concludes our service for those who are watching from home. For those who are here, we're going to say a Kiddush and a Motzi because we have a lovely oneg awaiting us.